We're now going to turn our attention to the third of Funakoshi's throwing techniques. This technique is called kubiwa. Kubiwa means neck ring, and it's featured in all three of Funakoshi's early books. This technique is in some ways got quite a lot of similarities to Byobu Daoshi, but we'll have a look at in ways that they differ and the ways that they link carefully together. The biggest distinguishing feature really is the position of your opponent's arm and how you control the head and neck with the arm wrapped around, as opposed to using a Nage Waza at the top of the lever. So we'll look at the basic mechanics of the technique first and show you how Funakoshi presents the throw. We'll then look at a whole variety of options where you can go once you've secured the neck ring. And we'll also see that this technique has some close relationships to some of the future throwing techniques that we're going to see from an inside position. Obviously, this is the final one of the techniques that's specifically demonstrated from an outside position. So let's have a look and look at the mechanics first. So as the punch comes, the first thing that we need to create is some sense of downward pressure in the arm. It doesn't need to be much, but it needs to be enough to allow me access to feed this arm in. We'll look at several methods that we can do that later, but we want to make sure that we get that pressure and then come in. In Funakoshi's book KARATE-Do KYOHAN, the way he presents the throw is from a block to the outside, and then an initial step in to this position, and then at the point of the throw, the foot comes into here. In his first two books, this is just the sole position that we see. We see a photograph of this position. So this is the neck ring, the kubiwa, and we've also got our opponent's arm, crucially across his centre line, passed underneath our arm, and we control the back. From here, to complete the throw, we simply use a turn. I'm sorry, okay. So this turn can be as simple as we've just seen, across the leg, or we can adjust our body in various positions to increase the power of the throw. So again, just slowly first. So we come with 1, 2, 3, and then from here we're just going to turn. So notice that my leg is in Jay's posture here. Then we just simply turn there. One simple add-on that you might want to start off fairly early on is, as we get to this position and we correct the posture, as we complete the throw, bring this hand across in front of the face and turn down so that controls the head. You can see I've now got stretch on this arm, so we can come in to this position and start to apply Juji Gatami from a standing position. If we wanted to fall back, we can. That has some advantages because it gives good control of the head. It also allows a reference point for you then to continue striking immediately if you wish. So when we bring our foot in, we can actually initially do it on the inside and the outside. So let's just take a look at that first. So as the attack comes, when we enter, I can step my foot directly to here, or I can step it to this position. If I step it into this position, I still want to correct my opponent's posture. So as I come in, we want to go quite tight on the ankle, and I want to circle the knee to correct the posture. You see that turns Jay's posture. So as I'm entering and securing here, and if I do the kubiwa as more of a pull here, I can use this in an opposite direction to twist my opponent. You can see his posture now. His head is past his base of support. The only thing for holding my opponent at this point is me, and then without even moving my leg, I can continue to turn and take my opponent down. But more commonly, you will see that we use this, then step in once I've corrupted that posture, because as we saw earlier, when my opponent is in a posture where it's like this, when I create downward pressure on the feet, it's hard for my opponent to step in. Not impossible, but hard. So I have time to bring that to the ground and then simply in. So that's just thinking about the initial feet entry. So if we keep the attack to the top initially, as we come in, as we feed this arm over, in reality you want this to be an atemi. There are multiple atemi that you can use. As a starting point, think about just simply using the forearm into the base of the jaw or into the throat. Okay? So we're here and we're using that to start to get our opponent back. In a way similar to Byobu Daoshi, but the crucial difference now is this arm, instead of being here, is now on the inside. So when I come round, I have far more control over my opponent's head and shoulders by virtue of this arm position. That in itself isn't enough. So to create complete control over his head and shoulders, I want that, and I want to take the base at the back of the shoulder. Now from here, if Jay tries to pull his arms out, okay, or turn, or pull away, or any of those movements, I have a lot of control over his head and shoulders. I can twist, I can pull, and we'll see this is a position that we'll make use of again later. So this gives me a lot of control over his head and shoulder girdle in particular. So that can be useful. Sometimes, however, just control isn't enough. So even if I've made a good job of coming in and I've got good control here, if Jay chooses to step back and recorrect his posture, so he can still come to a good position here. Okay? So I've still got good control over him, I can still pull him around, but I haven't got the initial posture that I want. So from here I can shift the hand down into this hip and use the hip in the same way I used the leg earlier to corrupt his posture lower down. Then that allows me to come in. Now from here, it's a simple action of turning to complete the throw. So we've actually seen already that from the outside position, you can corrupt the leg on the inside, on the outside, or using the hip, and again the foot can be in both positions when we corrupt the hip. But in all cases, what we're doing is recreating the same mechanical conditions that we saw in our first technique, which is we're trying to create a situation where our opponent's hips are past his heel line, or, this is more important in this technique, that his head and shoulders start to go past his heel line. Quite often, whilst there are methods, as we will see, where I can bring the hips themselves, actually, you see the head and shoulders, because the feet tend to stick in this technique, tend to move far greater. So whilst Jay is on balance here, just turn this way. So whilst he's on balance there, you'll notice from the side that the head is forward. So as we take his head out past the heel line, that's when he's forced to take a step. That's when we have position. So what we're doing simply is creating, limiting his capacity to step at the bottom, taking the head past with complete control over the head and on the other side. So as the attack comes, coming into this position, okay? So we're blocking to the outside, creating downward pressure and coming in with this arm. Obviously this can be a strike, and as we'll look at options for a moment, but this comes in, my other hand comes in as well, from here, I'm going to step, and then turn. Just on the basic mechanics before we move on, obviously part of the initial setup, as we've said, can use varying strikes, so let's just have a look at some. So I've just said that the first one I can use is simply my forearm snapping in to my opponent. So as I come through, use that snap to take the jaw and head back in, and then we can complete the throw. Another option is to use my thumb. So as we come in, and this is particularly nice because you then attack the throat itself. So we use the thumb based against the fist, come in, strike across the throat, then we come into the technique. So you have an initial 1, which is painful, that starts to turn the head, then 2, and bring that back in. Okay? We don't have to necessarily make the strike purely on the outward action. We can use the strike by pulling back. So another option is going through here, rather than thinking about the strike either here or here, we think about the strike here. So we pull our opponent's head back towards us. Now the obvious target for this is the ear. But obviously for safety reasons I'm not going to demonstrate it that way. So I'm going to come round the wrist deep to the back of the neck. And that's the other advantage of giving control over the back of the head. But in reality, this is the target we would see. That's going to be the one to cause the most damage. So as we come in, we create that downward pressure, and that weighted arm is what we're looking for. So that's creating the posture by putting pressure here and coming in. So as we come, there's our initial technique, and then we come through. Just from a different angle. So as we come in, we're here, the arms come through, it's going to be this action, that we use to complete the throw. So this method is particularly nice to use that pull immediately in. So where we have three simple options that we can consider with that arm. So 1, using the forearm, 2, using the thumb, 3, using the wrist. As we've seen, for all of them, we can have those various leg positions, and we can put the hand across if we wish. And we can also choose to progress into whatever locking technique we want. So those are our basic mechanics for kubiwa, neck ring. As we've seen, the mechanics actually are not that dissimilar in themselves to the obiudaoshi, but we have that additional control over the head and neck. Crucial thing, as we've already seen, is we have basic ways of positioning the feet, both inside and outside, and we can use various atemi with the arm as we secure the neck ring itself. And there are plenty of others that you can imagine and create for yourself, but those are some simple ones in order to get started.